going around in circles while making noise? Is that ChinnyVision or International Speedway? The original 199 games, the first budget games, were perhaps the most diverse set of games you could wish to come across. Forget the later years of $2.99 and $3.99 and Hit Squad and Kicks. I'm talking Firebird, I'm talking Mastertronic, I'm talking early Codemasters stuff before it became a bit conveyor belt. Every genre of game you can imagine. And it's the kind of thing we like to talk about on ChinnyVision. International Speedway by Silverbird. And you may have come across this twice because it had an original release in 1988 of $1.99 and it seems to have come out again in the early 90s, judging by some of the reviews I've seen. Just a rebadging, I suspect, and a hiking in price to $2.99. The game's coded by Probe, so I've got a big name behind this. I'm going to start off on the C64, which was almost certainly the original version. Two people at the top there, each reaching for the cup. You enter your name, you enter your nationality, which is of course Chin, and there's some rather poor music going on in the background. So into our qualifying round. Oddly, on all these versions, you don't have a race 1, you start on race 2. Bizarrely. I can't work that out. So I am the blue bike on the left, and if you don't know what Speedway is, well, look at the diagram at the bottom. You go around in a circle, basically. Usually with stands that are populated and not just black. So I'm trying to get the hang of this here. The technique is in the cornering. You mustn't over corner because you will slow down. There are only a few laps and each race is over in about 30 seconds. So we got the results from race 2, or race 1, where I came last. Over to the Spectrum. Spectrum version is coded by Mind's Eye. Oddly enough, not done by Probe, who did some good Spectrum games. Smash TV on the Spectrum is Probe. And each time you have to enter your name, your country and your continent. And this is weird because again it says, I've just paused it there for you, positions after the first race. Well, I haven't taken part in the first race, so I've got no points. And then I join on race 2. Is this what happens with Speedway? The instructions do not explain it. So I start at a disadvantage, and I'm on the left, and I'm denoted by the fact I'm white, and none of the bikers have arms. Well, they have arms up to the elbows. They just appear to have been kind of cut off from there. There is no audio, and it's very, very jerky. The diagram down the bottom is pointless. It is utterly pointless, and I don't know what purpose it serves, especially on the Spectrum where you can't actually tell who you are versus the other players because you're all black. Crash gave the game 24% and said if they had $1.99 knocking around, this is one of the last games they would buy. Sinclair user called it a dire Speedway sim and gave it 30%. Over to the CPC, nice David Whittaker music. Same graphics as the Spectrum though, in the sense the bikers have no arm, or no arms from the elbow down. You do, however, have colour. It's similar to the C64 version, but slower. And not an awful lot of fun, if I'm honest. And each race is over so quickly. Well, not quite as quickly as it was on the C64 at 30 seconds. And now we're on lap 3, and I am last. Or am I? No, I don't think I am. I'm trying to work out where I am. It doesn't actually tell you, it's got that stupid diagram. Am I last? Where did I come? I came second. And again, that was race 2. Why is it race 2? I don't understand. Can any Speedway people tell me if there's a reason why this would happen? Because it seems odd it's been carried across all 3 versions. Oh yeah, you can get false starts as well, so you need to be careful there. Back to the 64. What's this, race 72? Race 94? I was looking at the ever-reliable reviewers on Lemon 64, and I won't name who said this, but they said, this could be a decent full-price game with a little bit more added to it. No. I do like the animation on the bike, which obviously it is completely black, but when the bike leans, it looks realistic. Someone's taken some effort there. And there's some funky music, and the problem is there's nothing to this. It's just going around in circles very quickly with an increasing level of difficulty. There's no... Okay, Speedway is like that in terms of going around in a circle, but I think Speedway races are probably take a bit longer than this. There might be more laps. It just seems something and nothing. There is strategy in terms of how you corner and how you overtake, although overtaking is less a matter of skill and more one of luck. We got round there, but they're pulling away. Okay, it's a budget game. The problem is the longevity of it. And there ain't much of that, especially on the Spectrum version, where it's just jerky and horrible. I have won the championship. There I am. And we got some sound at last on the Spectrum. Hooray! And now we go on to the next league up. And the game will increase in difficulty a bit, but the tracks will not change. The colours change. That's as much excitement as there is. The colours do change. This is 1988, and it kind of feels like a game that other software houses might have turned down. Can you imagine taking this into Codemasters or Mastertronic and going, here's our game? And they go, yeah, okay. You're going to need to add to this. It needs more. Even at this price point, it needs more. And the biker needs arms. CPC. Had to be cautious at the start so you don't get a false start. That's really the only real timing issue with the game, that you need to get that bang on, a kind of matter of skill. Oh. And the CPC lacks that animation of the C64 version on the bikes. It's just not... It's not the worst budget game I've ever played by any means. It is not dreadful. And I don't think, you know, that 24% rating from Crash... perhaps be a bit harsh. And I'm always kind of... People think I slate everything on ChinnyVision. I don't think it's that... It's not terrible. I've played far worse games on budget than this. On CPC, I've won the championship. I've played far worse budget games than this, but there's just nothing. There's no substance, there's no depth, there's no longevity in the game. I'm glad to see, though, that the bikers do have hands on the graphic at the top there. Even if bizarrely they're in just 2 colours, when they don't need to be on the Amstrad. And now we're at the Purple Stadium. There is a ChinnyVision podcast now, comes out irregularly, and I'm speaking to users like you about your computing experiences. Just go to Podbean or Spotify or iTunes and type in ChinnyVision podcast. I promise you, it doesn't go on for hours. Each episode is about half an hour, and it's interesting people like you talking about, well, their computing experiences. back on 64, this whole display that fills up the bottom half of the screen, what does any of it do? There's no speed. You've got a revs thing. You've got a kind of indication between low and high speed, and a picture of your helmet. And is it just designed to fill up a large amount of the screen to keep the speed up in that top section? The C64 version is the most fun of all of these, but it just feels all very unsatisfying. And now we're at whichever level on the spectrum is the purple level. And one thing I haven't mentioned, because it's barely noticeable in the gameplay here, is each race you get a turbo. You can set off and you briefly zoom ahead. You know, just like in real Speedway. Oh wait, no. I think the coders realise it's dead easy to get stuck behind all the other bikers and not be able to get past. So they gave you a turbo option to get round that. I think it's a programming fudge to make the game better, as opposed to any real... Well, it shouldn't be there, should it? It's not there in real Speedway. International Speedway is a game with ambition, I'll give it that. And on the 64, the presentation isn't bad at all, even if the gameplay on all three versions is shoved up into a letterbox with a huge status display taking up half the screen. It's the last V8 all over again. The C64 version is clearly the original and it's the most polished. However, the gameplay on all three versions is the same, and it is wafer thin. The Spectrum version is very poorly presented, jerky, and not an awful lot of fun. The gameplay is, however, it's authentic to that C64 version. The Amstrad version has the benefit of colour, but it's still no more playable. And actually, on all three versions, it's not the presentation that's any of the problem. It's just the entire game is paper thin. I know Speedway is going round in circles, and therefore you might argue that there isn't going to be much thrill here. But I bet you if you go to a Speedway track, there is thrill, and this game is lacking excitement or anything. It does have ambition, but the reality doesn't match that.